Hey everybody, I'm sorry this is late getting out to you. I apologize, some stuff happened. So I'm going to be talking about the Amityville Horror. Now, I kind of want to preface this with this. This is my own version of a review, so if you haven't seen this, I'm sorry, there's probably going to be a little bit of spoilers in here, so please understand. I'm going to go into this right now. The movie, honestly, based off of a book that nobody knows if it's true or not. People say it's a true story, some people argue about it. There was actually a court case involving the entire story, and people had I don't know. It's kind of hard because here's the thing. I'm actually looking at a page called AmityvilleMurders.com, and what it basically discusses is I'm just prefacing this. In an interview with the History Channel, Kathy Lutz claimed the tragedy befell every family that lived in the DEFEO home. However, the book that everything's based off of, Jay Anson, suggests the property was cursed because it belonged to a guy named John Ketcham, who was allegedly a witch who fled Salem. Now, it's claimed that this is a falsehood. I don't know. I actually I'd heard about this before seeing the movie, what happened that is. And one of the things is, what happened is on November 13th, 1974, police were called to the house in Amityville where Ronald Butch DEFEO Jr. had been found to have killed 6 members of his family, 2 sisters, 2 brothers, and his parents. His claim was nothing supernatural. What he said was that his sister one of his sisters talking him into the killing, that their father was abusive, there was this guy she wanted to be with. He ended up killing her, and they did gunpowder residual tests on her clothing and found that, yes, there was gunpowder from the discharge of a gun. And even more so, evidence indicates that Butch wasn't the only killer. So when the Lutzes come into the picture, what ends up happening is that all of a sudden we get this supernatural stuff happens, right? Their youngest daughter, Amy, all of a sudden has this invisible friend named Jody. Well, little kids have invisible friends, and or so it goes. I don't know. Oh, sorry, did not mean to hit the table. And so there's never really any major discussion about Jody. Amy says at one point, Jody doesn't like George, her stepfather, and nobody asks why. Oh, honey, why doesn't Jody like George? Nobody says anything like that. At one point, Amy and George both end up becoming really ill, along with Father Delaney, a local priest who comes to bless the house. Later goes blind. Like I said, spoilers, right? And, well, I'm doing my take, so whatever. So, it's kind of one of those odd things, because there are reports that Father Delaney wasn't known by the Lutzes like they claim he was. So there's nothing clear and concise, because there's talk of an exorcism that's done on the house. During the movie, where basically George and Kathy go walk around with a cross that they found hanging upside down, and they polish. And so it's this claim that this exorcism was done. But if you look at it, the exorcism couldn't have been done because basically the priest wasn't in the house doing it. The priest goes blind because this spirit attacks him while he's in church doing this exorcism, which doesn't make sense because, once again, they have to be done at the home. exorcisms, I don't know if it only applies to people, have to be ordained by the church, if I remember correctly. You have to get permission from the church to do certain types of exorcisms. I don't know if it's both or not. I think on people it is, because a lot of things came up where there was questions. The movie The Exorcism of Emily Rose is one of the cases where people were being exorcised that had mental illness issues, and there was a priest that was basically charged with the murder because of it. And so the church says, look, you got to make sure there's no mental illness. And the problem I have is they buy the house a year later after the murders happened, and for 28 days, they basically experience all this paranormal crap. You have a door that explodes off the hinges, an invisible friend who locks the babysitter in the closet, won't let the daughter do anything. There's no proof that the door can lock. I think there might have been I don't think there was a keyhole shown. I don't remember. Just all this stuff. George has this consistent desire to basically sharpen his axe. So Amy, George are the only two really in the house that have continual illness. You have the priest, Father Delaney, and then you have Kathy's aunt, who is a nun, who gets sick, and then she's fine. Anytime like anybody tries to call a priest, stuff happens between the wires. And apparently, whatever's in the house follows the priest. As if you've watched the movie, you know there's a car accident. The issue that I take with the movie, don't get me wrong, the acting is good. The story has a lot of holes in it, for one. There's a lot of questions that are asked, because at one point, this guy comes over to the Les house, and he knocks on the door. He's got a sixer in his hand, and he goes, I'm here, we're all here to welcome you to the neighborhood. Well, who is we? You're the only one there. That doesn't make sense. So a lot of this stuff doesn't make sense. At one point, the boys are picking on their sister. Linda comes down and slams on one of their hands to the point where only blood comes out, but he's not actually physically hurt. Well, why is Amy one of the targets, the little girl? And if you remember the scene where Kathy pulls up George's pant leg, there's bite marks. You're like, okay, where did the bite marks come from? Because, we know they have the dog. Oh, let's not forget the dog. I love this one. If you've heard spoilers and you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. It doesn't make sense. Animals are supposed to be attuned to the spirit world. The dog's outside barking like crazy, right? He gets inside. All of a sudden, he's digging at that little entryway, like it's the stones before they crack it open. And after that, he's like, going over, looking in, going back, looking in. So the dog's like stupid or something. Oh, I was barking at you earlier. No, I'm gonna just stay here. Really? I know it's a movie, but come on. Have a little continuity. All of a sudden, a dog is going to be tracked to a doorway to hell, and it's, you got a doorway to hell, or underworld or something. You don't think to move out of the house? We're going to stay here. There's a portal to the underworld or hell. We don't know. Okay? Because apparently some guy attached to the Salem witch trials, what is his name? I had it. John Ketchum, was this apparently guy who had ties to witchcraft. There were people buried in this house, a whole variety of stuff. Kathy claimed that tragedy befell everybody who lived at this home, And I'm like, okay, so we're hearing about a murder. Um, there's claims that this was all faked, that George and this other guy hashed out the story over alcohol. George, gets plans to the house. That's never discussed why. He goes into a bookstore slash, I don't know if it's a bookstore or a library. But he steals a book. Like, if it's a library, come on, go check the book out. If you can. One of the guys he works for, his girlfriend, goes up to the house. He's like, I can't go in. It's just too much. Like, come on, lady. Later on, after you find out witchcraft and all this crap is involved, you all of a sudden have to go to the house. She's like, the vibes are coming from the basement. The basement. Yeah. Cliche, cliche, cliche. Most of the stuff comes from the basement, lowest place in the house. And she's like, the part about find and cover the well. What well? Are you talking about the thing that George falls into and he comes up and the dog's growling? He's like, it's me, you dumbass. Pulls him up. What was that stuff? Blood? What? What's the well? We don't know. The basis of this movie is convoluted. I'm sorry, it is. You seriously can't tell if it's a cash grab or what. In my opinion, yes, it probably was a cash grab. If there's anything out there that the kids talk about, I would love to see their side of things, because it just really feels like there's just too much that doesn't work out. That's the problem. It's a really big problem for me. And the ghost, the demon pig, I'm sorry. The demon pig was so stupid. I'm sorry. A friend of mine told me, I'll get scary at the end. I'm looking at this demon pig laughing. And you see George carrying the axe and he's running upstairs going, Kathy! And she's like, I won't let you hurt my babies. Who was Jody? Jody tells me about the little boy that used to live in this room and he got hurt and died. Who's Jody? Seriously? You basically sit there and you're like, what the is with all this stuff? Literally. Let's see here. Born 1931. The Michael Hedges. Blah, blah, blah. So apparently what we know is the family basically had money, which I explained in the house. But I'm trying to find... See, two of the boys are named Mark and John. So Butch was the oldest. There was Don, Teresa, Allison, Louise, and Mark. So Don, Allison, Mark. She was going to leave him. And there's John. So, yeah, there's kind of a question of, all this stuff. And then one of the other things is, like, who Jody is. Like I said, that part drove me batshit crazy. Because The little girl goes, "Mommy, you scared Jody." When she says that, and she looks outside, and there's the eyes. Like, they're pig's eyes. Never seen pig's eyes like that. I lived up in pig farming country, trust me. That shit's nasty. Not literally. Pig feces is awful. Yeah, you drive past pig farm. Anyways, so we have the flies. These flies show up. The flies, I love that. Like, Beelzebub, where are the flies? So it's just one of those movies that I don't know if stuff is explained in the book, which I'm not going to spend the money reading, or what the deal is. But honestly, I don't understand what drew people to this. Maybe they didn't know as much about the murders, or they were fascinated with the idea of, these murders were created by something, or what. And one of the interesting things is George waking up about 3:15. I've read various theories on that one. 3:15 is supposed to be part of the devil's hour. I've heard other things about that, so it's kind of, odd. But with everything that I've read going into this movie and what I've seen before and after, story-wise, the movie does have some merit. Acting-wise, pretty good. In terms of having an R rating, more like PG-13 more than anything else. Because there's not a lot of swearing in it. Blood dripping down from the walls. The amount of TNA is something you could have seen in, what was it? What was that movie? 16 Candles Are Pretty in Pink. You saw more TNA in that than anything else. So there's a lot of questionable stuff, going on. Overall, with a lot of the holes that are in the story, questions on what really was going on when people were doing certain stuff. Why did George steal the book? Why did he have the blueprints? It just doesn't feel right. And especially finding out that you're living in a house which has a gateway to the underworld or hell or whatever you want to call it, where spirits are coming out of. You probably want to get out of there. And especially because of the fact that it really feels like there's multiples. It's multiple beings or whatever. It really makes you question a lot of things. Like when George ends up with the bite marks, you wonder what happened. There's the statue of the dragon, but you don't see blood on his teeth. You don't see a lot of stuff. If you want to watch it, if you're watching this, listening to me talk, I'm not going to spoil a lot of this stuff. You can go ahead and feel free to do so. I don't care. But personally, either rent it, borrow it from someone, or do what I did: go to Walmart and get it for $3.75 because I'm cheap like that. And I did not want to. I'm sorry. I didn't want to spend a lot of money on this because I was trying to track down a copy, and I gave up my Netflix right now DVD subscription. I don't remember seeing it on the streaming. So that's it, everybody. Hope you liked this review. Like I said, I'm sorry there were spoilers, but there was stuff I had to talk about. Ultimately, though, I wouldn't say it's a good movie. I wouldn't say a bad movie. I just think that they could have been done better. By the way, there was a 2005 remake, which I will not watch. Largely because one of the things I've heard about it is the babysitter that gets locked in the closet. So many bad jokes I can insert there as it is. They changed the character because they didn't want a dorky babysitter. They wanted the sexy babysitter. Yeah, I'm like, let's lead the father into temptation. That's really great. I said, everybody, I'll talk to you later. Take care. Bye. Oh, one other thing. I do have some outtakes I've been saving for some other videos. From some other videos. So if you want to see those, let me know. I might combine them together and then just release a video. I've kind of thought about it off and on. Adios.